Hey, everyone, and welcome to Bourbon Over Baseball. My name is Jeff, and we've got Matt here as well. Say hey.
How's it going?
All right, so we've had a bit of a lull. We're finally getting back on things. People are busy. People are getting vaccinated. It's great. We're super psyched, and maybe we can get back to in-person showdown at some point. But until then, we're still playing through Tabletop Simulator, playing out some leagues. We're actually going to start a new league here soon. But we, in fact, did just finish up our 2001 NL only league that we played over TTS. It was the first league that we've done on TTS.
hmm
So it felt like a perfect opportunity that we've, to kind of wrap up the league and how it went. We did a preseason, we did a midseason, and now we're going to do the postseason. So, but yeah, and actually, side note to the league, I just want to shout this out for anybody listening. I assume most people are listening probably through Facebook or through the Discord that we run. But if anybody doesn't know, isn't in the Discord that we run, that we talk showdown pretty much every day, leave a comment, reach out to us, either one of us. You can find, we'll add our Twitter handles in this description, so you can hit us up. But yeah, we definitely basically the more people to talk showdown, the better. So wanted to shout that out really quickly. So let's hop into it. We played 20 games in the season. It was a 10-2 game series, two divisions, 8 teams, pretty simple. And yeah, I mean, some things went to plan, some things didn't. Over right now, we're looking at the standings overall, and we had Matt, you and I had our predictions.
Yep.
Kind of went to plan. Some, I don't know, like we'll get to the playoff predictions later, but if you look at this, like Cleveland Tribe and get wrecked Scrubs did super well, right? Did crazily well. And then a lot of teams around that 500 mark, which is not surprising because it's baseball at the end of the day. And then we can also get to the anomaly on the other side of things, which is the Athano Snappers, which is me. But yeah, anyway, any overall thoughts just on the league, the standings, anything there?
I think the biggest surprise outside of my team, um, I mean, obviously, when everybody has a 5,000 point team, you are going to have a lot of people hovering around 500. So, um, I think it was more surprising how back and forth a lot of the games were.
Right. I don't have the number offhand. It was a lot of one-run games,
Yeah,
right? Like, I mean, you're seeing some big diffs here, but a lot of those were just, single games,
blowouts.
right? Blowouts where people didn't want to use the relief staff, which makes sense. And that's the system we set up in terms of the rules. But man, I can just speaking for the playoffs too, which we'll cover, like almost every game was a one-run game or just a
Yeah.
two-run game where people are scoring 2 in the bottom 11, things like that. Um, and yeah, I mean, like the one thing that's, Bob's Cleveland Tribe, I think they were 10-2 to start, which was
hmm
wild and just an anomaly in this game, right? Just the dice were on his side. Finally did normalize, right? Which is not unexpected. Get Rex Grubb, same record, but just did it in a much more steady way, right? Just was winning, generally 2 of 3 games pretty much consistently. Couple, good, well-timed, sweeps. But then to your point, I mean, most of it was 500 ball, just kind of splitting series, sweeping a series was gigantic. But yeah, let's hop into the teams. We're going to just take a look at, just kind of give a breakdown of what they were trying to do, what we think they were trying to do, how they did, any anomalies, good or bad. So we'll start with the Thanos Snappers, which was my team, which were terrible. We're not good. I was actually I think 2-12 at a certain point, which made me question whether I was bad at Showdown or the dice hated me or both, honestly. So that was a definite anomaly. My guys underperformed substantially. I mean, just, I won't go too much into it, but Bobby Abreu for 5'10" with a OPS of 610 is pretty bad. I
Yeah,
don't
I think if we played another 20 games, he would look completely different.
right. It just, and the crazy is that it's one thing for like single players to underperform or or like even like your batting in general to underperform, but my everything underperformed. I mean, Tony Armas
Yeah.
Jr., who I love that card, was 0-4. He actually lost all 4 games that he started, which is unusual.
I
Or
think
actually, right, there was
from
5
my
games.
perspective on that, with how it's set up, I think him as your ace is what puts him in that bad position.
Right, true. Because I was going against
Because
600.
most likely most teams don't, their ace is probably more than 450. So he was probably the underdog in most of those matchups.
Right. And that was like during the draft. I mean, one thing we all realized with, not only just doing half, one league, right, just NL, it was staggering how few pitchers, great
Yeah.
pitchers were available. And once like Kevin Brown, Greg Maddux, Chan-Ho Park were gone, I was kind of like, I was always a pitching heavy draft. I usually did that with my strategy. And I was like, okay. And I didn't, I want Bobby Abreu. And then I think Tony Armas was my second pick, which was an overreach looking back. I should have just kind of punted on starting pitching, but interestingly enough, I mean, makes no sense. And all these guys were bad, but Garrett Stevenson with his 2 doubles ended up being my, statistically best pitcher, which makes, again, no sense. I will say that, the 2 other anomalies here, Trevor Hoffman did pretty great. That was not a surprise. Did lose 2 games though. So he was blowing games. Jose Cabrera I know these ones just because I played them out. Jose Cabrera for 40 points, did a decent amount of work, only 8 innings, but he didn't really, he's a not great chart, so he
Yeah.
did okay. And then the only, I guess, silver lining you could say is that, Bobby Abreu, got on base. What is this? Like, some 30 something times, and he stole 17 times. So basically half the times he got on base, he stole. I think he led the league in stolen bases,
Yeah.
which is great that's what I wanted from a leadoff guy. I wanted a number 1 who could get on base, steal, which he did, but then followed by, Moises Alou, who also severely underplayed. He eventually showed up second half of the season. Charles Johnson, Jose Vedrio did not do well. So
Is
anyway,
Moises Alou out through 5? Do you remember?
he's out through 4, I believe.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, because I think like 387 falls right in line with the 10 OB out through 5 card
He did.
projected area.
He might be 1 through 5 out because he own charted out a lot.
And that's versus the average pitcher. And like they always say in leagues, you're not facing the average pitcher because everybody's probably drafting higher most of the time. But
Right.
I just thought that was kind of interesting when I was looking at it.
He did show up. I will say he showed up second half of the season, and then Cirillo,
Yes,
Galarraga,
Cirillo did pretty well.
he did. Yeah, Galarraga was lights out first half, and then steep drop off. And Cirillo was kind of the inverse, pretty slow to start, and ended up showing up. So anyway, I learned some things. I'm going to try some weird stuff next time. Again, it's still 5,000 point teams at the end of the day, but looking back,
Yep.
I would I would change some things. But someone said, hey, if you could make swaps, would you? I don't know what I would do. Like, this team still looks okay on paper. It just really did. Some of these players are kind of ruined to me in a sad way. So anyway,
Yeah.
all right. So we'll go to the Cleveland Tribe, which 8-4, 8-4 division, 13-7. This team raked. I mean,
Yes.
the lineup. I mean, there are almost everybody was an 8 OPS at least. Most at 9 and a couple above 1. Just Ken Griffey went bonkers. Jeff Fry was his 9 batter, went bonkers. I mean, just scary, right? Just scary.
The flashbacks of Griffey. I played Bob in our second meeting, and I was 1 game behind him in the division at the time. And he beat me 16-1 in the first game, and Griffey had 3 homers. Like, I still remember that. That was probably like, I think he was like 9 and whatever he was, and I was like 7-3 or like I was right behind him. And then like that from there on, my team just never showed back up.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think your 16-1 beating was like alongside my like 17-3 beating. Like, I think they were both happening at the same time. Like, that was the moment where I was like coming to terms with like, what am I doing? Like, why am I?
Is that the day that we played in the same room?
Yep, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
Like, I remember just saying out loud, and like, I know everybody has felt this way with Showdown at some point, because it's like I honestly felt in this league that I would just never roll well again. I had the inverse feeling. I actually had a league where I have my famous orange dice that it could only roll 20s. It felt like I couldn't roll anything but like 19s and 20s. This league, I honestly just had trouble believing I could ever roll well again. And so like, I remember us playing that, and I remember just like someone else hit another home run, and I was just like, I was just like, I just want it to end. I want the pain to end. So I've come back from that, but man, it was a brutal time. So, but anyway, Bob's team was just unbelievable. His pitching was great. I mean, you get Maddox to be great. His Mike Hampton, Mets card, also great. He had pretty underwhelming relief, but didn't super matter.
No, he scored so many runs that it really just at that point he just had to maintain.
Right, exactly. So, anyway, let's go
Because
to.
I'm looking at his relieving. He used Felix Heredia 18 innings. Like he
No,
only used 3 relievers basically.
well, and it's interesting even seeing the points breakdown by innings pitch. Like, yeah, I mean, you pay the money to Varys and Heredia. Like, he didn't even do Varys. Like,
Yeah, he used him half the time that he would use Heredia. So he must have just really trusted Heredia.
and then I think he just went to Sour, but Sourback for 20. If you've ever seen that card, is fantastic. But still maybe like actually should be 50 or 60 points. And like, yeah, he got 7 solid-ish innings. I mean, his ERA is just horrible, but I'm sure he just got rocked one game that it didn't matter because it was up 16-1. So, but overall, Bob's team, like we kind of felt early on that Bob's team could do really well just based on the lineup, and it happened. So, all right, let's get to the Cleveland Steamers, which is your team. Why don't you break us down?
All right. Well, the first half of the season, we thought Mark McGwire was going to run away with the MVP because that's when I started making my charge before I ran into Bob again. But he had a pretty okay, season on the whole aspect of it. But his average was a lot better prior to my 6-game losing streak to end the season.
Right.
But like my team OB, all my 10s had over 400 on base percent, except Luis Castillo. But they just walked. Like they just walked all day.
Right. It's just, I mean, God, like 19, 30, I mean, like given the plate appearances, I mean, we're again, like 80, we're in the 80s. Like, I mean, they were walking like, probably 15% of the time or so, which is fine. But like we've learned in Showdown that walks are like half of a single.
Right.
Not to say they're not good at getting on base, but man, like you're right. Like, I mean, McGwire was walking, Bonds was walking. McGwire was eventually hitting more home runs, but I mean, I think
and Edmonds.
Right. Edmund, Sheffield, McGwire were raking.
Yeah.
Bonds was the surprising one that it just, I mean, he underperformed. I mean, he's 650 and
he underperformed and he still had a 411 on base.
Right.
It's
exactly.
Just
but he needed to be above 1 OPS.
Yeah.
I mean, that
so it was rough. I think what I learned with this team, because I just said, like we all said, I said F it. And I just took all the high batters that were around just to see. And then the second half of my lineup couldn't knock them in once they did walk. And that was where the issues came.
Right.
So, I mean, we don't even need to really look over my pitching. My pitching was very bad other than Rick White.
Yeah, Rick White was great. Yeah, you're right. It was overall just.
I guess Curtis Leskanic, 0.75 ERA with a 1 WHIP. He was good, but
he did. Yeah, he did well. He got. I think he did get some. We did awards voting. He got some relief man of the year votes.
I had a really balanced bullpen, and looking back at it, not playing the rules, I could have just relied on 3 guys and spent that money on better hitting or better back end like starting pitching.
Right. It's worth noting that Albert Pujols, if there was a rookie of the year vote, I mean, the guy, 100 points guy actually was pretty great. He
eight doubles,
16 singles. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, his slugging was almost as good as Bonds, and that makes no sense. Anyway, all right. Well, we'll go to the Lucy Deuces, which was Kevin. Surged his way into the playoffs. It was really him. It was really him and Matt fighting for that second spot because I was out of it. And he made his last handful of games count. He had this team was unusual because the people like Vanderwall and Andrew Jones, Jeffrey Hammonds, there, sure, okay, absolutely, but like Somehow Mike Bordick became superhuman and turned into Superman, and became one of not only the best players on this team, but the best players in the league. Look at 380 average, 463 on base, 700 slugging for an OPS of 1.168. Just he was batting like six. It's another one that made no sense. And this is where, we've talked about just jokingly making showdown cards based on their stats in this league, just so we can see that Mike Bordick ends up being like a 600 point batter, becomes so this is a card that I think everybody in this league just kind of came out just laughing about how could we not look at him we have to look at him differently now. So and he drafted Kevin Brown with his one of his first high picks. I think he had
the number one pick.
He did. Yeah, I think
he went Brown, Maddox, and then I took Bonds.
Yep, that's correct. So anyway, he did well. Relief staff was pretty middling, but he had some solid showings from De Los Santos and Van Poppel, and we'll get to some Van Poppel extravagance later. So
and Pete Harnish did really well as number two. I mean, he had better numbers than Kevin Brown.
I think Pete Harnish got some Cy Young votes.
Okay.
He did. I mean, 4-1 record is great. 35 innings. He was just. I mean, Kevin Brown is an IP7. It makes no. That Harnish card did crazy well. So yeah, I mean, look at Kevin Brown. Think of his chart. I mean, just basically what this says with 6 home runs is that he just was rolling ones and twos. And that card's. I mean, Kevin Brown he's a 4 out through 17. Or is he 5 out? Okay, that's what I thought. And one thing we're going to do for our next league, which we don't have it here, but I just think it's, people always say oh man, I rolled a mistake pitch so much, or man, I own chart all the time. So we're going to start actually keeping track of that, because I'm going to love statistically being able to say, actually, you rolled the least mistake pitches, or you received the most, or actually Jeff own charted out all the time, or this many times per game. So it's fun. We were kind of going back and forth in our leagues about whether keeping stats or not keeping stats, and it's just differing opinions. It's really just a matter of preference. I think there's something to be said with just kind of blowing through games quickly without stats, but we're doing this because we have stats, right? So there's something to be said with the narrative and the story that we can tell.
I don't think the postseason pod would be as fun. None of us would be like, oh, Mike Bordick played well. We wouldn't know that he did that.
Right. But you just say those things. And that's why usually we didn't keep stats in the playoffs. And I was like, let's do that. And I'm glad we did, because we came out with some narratives, right? That's kind of what this is about, and narratives that stuck around, that we could all talk about, not just recording it or, or somebody or hearing it through, the game of telephone. So anyway, all right. So that was the Cleveland division. We're going to the not Cleveland here. So the Get Wrecked Scrubs, our buddy George, he steadily really good. I actually, when I subbed in for some games here and there, I played as his team often. I don't know if I won them all, which I think he probably wasn't super happy about, but I'm probably 4 of his 7 losses. I'm not sure. So maybe I'm bad at Showdown. So, but he had a fun team. Really, I mean, his 1, 2, 3 was was Floyd, Hidalgo, Guerrero. Floyd, Matt and I, you and I talked about how there were a lot of cards that we didn't know as much about going into this league.
Yeah.
Kind of we came out just falling in love with, and I would say Cliff Floyd is solidly in that category
for sure.
So
especially the way he performed.
Oh my god, I mean, he's as a leadoff, and he had 16 stolen bases. I know that him and Abreu were the ones kind of going back and forth, but no, he was great. He was super great. He got on base, and then it didn't hurt that Hidalgo and Guerrero were hitting for power, and that's where he was getting on. It's crazy actually. Floyd had a bigger slugging percentage than either one of them. But dude, no problem in having that as your one.
I mean, to get 16 RBIs out of your leadoff hitter is pretty solid in this league.
Right, and his back 3 were not good. I mean, it was Blanco, Polanco, and then the pitcher. So it's not like.
I mean, Polanco scored 8 runs, and so did Blanco. So those were the guys he was knocking in.
Right, that's crazy. He went heavy on the. He did the, and I love these guys. Julian Tavares, Levano Hernandez were the control 6 out through 14 guys. Did pretty well. I mean, not crazy well, but did okay. Levon got lit up.
Yeah, his ERA is pretty high.
but it's crazy because like I used to focus so much on his 1-2 starters, but really his 3-4 were where
Yeah.
things just got unbelievable with Brad Penny and
Jimmy Anderson.
Jimmy freaking Anderson. This card is a control 1 out through 17. So it's Kevin Brown minus 3 control. He's 230 and I mean these stats, he's 3-1, which I don't even care too much about the record, but a below 1 whip with that card again
Right.
doesn't make any sense. He should be giving up the control all the time statistically, and giving walks and hits, nothing crazy, maybe not getting blown up, but and even Brad Penny, same thing, which I can't remember that card off the top of
I
my
think
head.
it's like a 5 out through 14, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I mean it's 3-4 cleaned up.
Yeah.
And then he had some great bullpen to back it up. I mean, Mike Fetters was great, one of the best relievers in the league. But Kevin Walker pitching 21 innings and still having a 1.17 WHIP. I mean, didn't hurt. I mean, so he was
No.
locking down with Brad Penny and Jimmy Henderson, or those guys were coming out and pitching really well, and then Kevin Walker, Mike Fetters come in and just really lock the game down. So it's not surprising why he was steadily being great the entire season.
No, not at all.
All right, going on to the Chicken Hawks, which our buddy James designed the TTS. Surprised he didn't win the World Series because he designed it,
Yeah.
and there's probably
I picked him to rig it.
Right, there's probably a cheat button, and I wish I knew where that cheat button was because I need it. But he, 9/11, he was in the running. It was really 3 guys fighting for 1 spot, which was pretty fun to watch. But him and the Ducks, who we'll talk about, or Libra Maniacs, were 9/11, and Win Dance Repeat kind of leaked in with the 10-10 record. So another, again, like solid team that I think we figured out statistically should have won more games based on their statistics. So he had Ellis Burks was just bonkers, just one of the best players in the league, bonkers, and kind of a drop off after that, which hurt him. And the crazy thing is that first half of the season, Ellis Burks was a joke in our league because he kept hitting into ground ball double plays. And then it not only was it happening on the pitcher's charts, but then he was hitting into ground ball double plays on his own chart, which is maybe the worst thing you could ever do. I think a mistake pitch ground ball double play on his own chart happened. And I think he almost quit the league. So I was there to watch that one. I probably shouldn't have laughed. So, so Ellis Burks was not great. And then he just went freaking bananas the second half. So
I think Todd Helton's in the Barry Bonds category.
He definitely got some we didn't overvalued vote, and he was there. Not a terrible on base, but man, for 560,
344 for a 10. That's rough.
Right. He had some good pitching. I mean, kind of. Jeff D'Amico was not great for spending 530, 1-3. His ERA is just horrible. But Darryl Kyle was a Cy Young guy for most of the season. And then Darren Dreifort became a Cy Young candidate, about halfway through. Kerry Wood, that card is what it is. I think we all have decent opinions on that card, but he had a good relief staff to back him up, but he just still got rocked a lot of times. And but he had probably the best bullpen in the entire league. And it showed at times just because he was locking down those games. But again, I think he lost a lot of games by 1 run, and where 1 run really made the difference between, an 11
his
and 9.
bullpen gave up 9 runs for the whole season.
Yeah, but then look at D'Amico,
right?
Kerry Wood,
D'Amico and Kerry Wood. That's probably why he missed out on the playoffs.
Right. So, all right, so moving forward. So this is actually the Ducks on the pond. This was a
shout out to Libra Maniacs.
I know.
If you're listening, let us know what the hell happened to you.
Buddy of ours, didn't really hear from him much lately. I think he had a kid, so it makes sense. But drafted the team. Didn't hear from him again. Ended up getting a buddy of ours, Nate, who's become, over the past year, we've become good friends with, a big Showdown guy. Took over the team. He's now big into TTS. Really psyched to have him on. So he took over this team, which was super cool because it was kind of not his team. And we met him. We let him make a few changes, but nothing too substantial, and played out the remaining team. So he was in the playoff hunt, 9/11. And, it was what he basically did, that he lowered, he had Randy Johnson on his team, dropped him, and then picked up some better batters, which looking back for him, he said was not a good call. But again, part of this was just a learning experience, just figuring out, like, Randy was doing crazy well, but it's so funny in our Showdown world that we just think so much about, like, well, he's been doing well, as if these cards are real, as if they, and like, honestly, I feed into it. I think I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, Mike Bordick's going to come up and hit a grand slam or something, where Bobby Abreu is going to just be the worst, right? Which doesn't make sense, because those cards should individually perform based on how the card looks at that moment. But yeah, anyway, more than anything, just glad Nate was able to kind of take over this team. Chan Ho Park was probably his best player. But we did have some really interesting, I think it was only 2 starts, but Paul Rigdon came in. He was testing out some pitchers with homers, and did pretty well. I mean, he had some, I remember one instance where he had a perfect game through 5. Again, doesn't make sense maybe, but and even Gagne, like, not horrible. Again, it's only 2 starts, so it's kind of a hard, it's kind of tough to base it on too much there, but and then he also had a great relief staff. So excited to see what he's really getting zoned in for our next league. So I'm kind of excited to see what his team would be, So it's kind of tough because he didn't draft this team, and then we're kind of talking about it. So all right, so win, dance, repeat. This probably the most interesting team in the league is our buddy Greg. He made the playoffs, which was and we'll talk about this team more, but I would say, honestly, his hitting underperformed during the season. There's no doubt about it. I mean, like,
Jeff Kent's just jumping right off the page.
Right. I mean, just look at that one. Mark Kotze was his only hitter above 1 OPS. And most of the guys are bad. He did, and this was the team that had pretty much drafted only starting pitchers that gave up a home run, with the exception of Al Leiter. Al Leiter did pretty well, had 3-1. Tapani, super well. Brian Anderson, okay, not great. And then Masato Yoshi actually ended up getting benched by the end of the year. And he started rolling pretty much bullpen only games at that point. So, and he didn't even have a deep relief staff. I mean, it was pretty much Tom Gordon, Swindell, Christensen. But, he made it work. Tom Gordon was pretty great, other than, losing a handful of games here and there. You can see how much he was getting thrown because he won 4 games and lost 2. So he was just showing up in a lot of games where it meant something and pitching. So
he had a decision and basically had a decision in 9 games between wins, losses, and saves.
Right. And I think this team is the most interesting to me because I think that just based on how they did, I think everyone kind of changed their tune on starters and pitchers that give up home runs. We always stayed pretty far away from them, like they were radioactive. And I think everybody kind of changed their tune on that. And I'm actually really interested to see how it kind of fits into the next league
I think it'll be very interesting, especially after today's Discord conversation.
Right. And it's interesting because, like, we're going to do the 2020 set that was created, on the blog, the Greatest Showdown, project. And the thing that's so interesting is that there's so many good pitchers in the 2020 set, like so many unbelievably good pitchers. Yeah. Like we always talk about the tiers. Basically their outs are up to outs plus their control. There's like a couple tier 0s. There's a ton of tier 1s, which not always is. And then again, we're talking about how many people are going to draft home run pitchers. So I think there's going to be a massive gap between teams that are fielding the best pitchers in the set and then teams that are fielding guys that give up home runs with,
and the small sample size too of the season, like, just made for some weird pitching cards.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking for some. They're fun. I mean, I want to shout some out so bad right now, but I'm not going to because I feel I haven't done a ton of research on my team, just because I kind of want to just go into it and see how it works. Because 12 teams is going to be, and I'm eventually going to do a podcast just kind of breaking down the league and what the setup and everything. But 12 teams is deep, right? We did 8 within a league, and that makes it just deep by. You have to have depth by nature, but 12 teams, the entire league, it's going to be, I love seeing more players getting used. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So
I think I would, and I just, because I said this last time too, I love the whole force to have depth, like using a 12 team league for only half a league would be amazing to me.
Yeah, I think
People would hate it, but I would love it.
We talked about, and what I think we're actually going to end up doing with this eventually, when maybe this 2020 league is done in probably the end of the summer. I think we should go back and play 2001 AL only.
Yeah.
Same structure, probably 8 teams. Maybe the core, the originals that did this, and then guess what? We can have a actual World Series between the NL and the AL with the same teams that we had built out. I think that's something I want to just because I think that I definitely love that idea. I definitely love 12 teams. 12 teams in one league. I know that I didn't want to start with that with 2020 just because I think we all want to learn the cards, but I'm not saying that's impossible,
I mean, it's definitely not impossible, but your number 4 starters are gonna be just trash.
Woo, they're gonna be bad. So
it'll be fun.
All right, so those are the teams. Really quickly going to go over leaders before we go into the playoffs. So, basically nothing super crazy here. I mean, Hidalgo, Cliff Floyd came from the same team. That's pretty crazy. So shows you that those both came from the scrubs. You can look at the first doubles, triples. Tony Womack, it's like 170 point card, had the most triples. It makes no sense. And then, Ken Griffey and I think Jenkins was also on Bob's team, wasn't he?
They are.
So both these guys were on Bob's team. There's your boy, Mark.
And for a while, it was McGuire, Sheffield, and Edmonds that were the top 3, and they all just stopped.
You're right. They just stopped hitting home runs. So, other things that Bobby Brayu, my guy, won the stolen base crown. Doesn't mean anything. I'm going to cut him this season. Or this off season. But
Jeff Fry on base, percent leader.
I mean,
him and Mike Bordick battled it out for average and on base.
I need to stress this. Jeff Fry was batting 9th on Bob's team. He was batting number 9 with a league leading 468 on base. That's fucking unbelievable. Right? I don't know how else to put it. I love it.
And that's why Griffey was knocking in so many RBI.
Exactly. That's exactly it. It just Fry was on base and then Griffey was hit. And like Griffey was, I mean, he was in the OPS. Yeah. Let's look at his or just his slugging. He was second in slugging. That's just a combination you could, Fry is an on base, and that's a great card. Great guy, great Twitter account. Go follow him. On base 9, mostly walks and singles, just gets on base. And guess what? That super works out. So I was not a big fan of the whole, because we were NL only rules, like batting the pitcher. And like a lot of Bob was one of the only teams to be batting the pitcher 8th and then having a position guy 9. Most other guys were just, doing the pitcher 9. And that worked out, right? Maybe situationally, circumstantially, but it super worked out. So we'll go to the starting pitcher or the starting pitcher leaders. Nothing super crazy here. I mean, I think the Al Leiter only has like he was a 5 to 9 strikeout. That's 5 rolls, but nothing crazy. And he just went bonkers on Case, which was kind of awesome. Other than that, Brian Anderson was awful.
Jimmy Anderson.
Right. Well, not and Jimmy. Where's Jimmy Anderson on here? Oh yeah,
I just see him at the whip. I just got to the whip.
Look at this. Chanho had the lowest ERA by far. He did super well. But man, Jimmy Anderson's whip, his doesn't make any sense. It's league leading by a lot.
Second place in ERA makes it even better.
We're gonna get to that as some award winners because there's some fun stuff. But let's really quickly talk playoffs. So
let's do it.
I'm gonna go back to the schedule here. Or the standings, and you can tell we're probably moving. I want to try to keep this as quick as possible for everyone. But so, Matt, do you remember what your predictions were for the playoffs?
I'm pretty sure I said me and Bob, and then I was going to sweep Bob, and then George and Japes because Japes was going to cheat.
Yes, that and you and then you were going to sweep James for the World Series. Yeah. I somehow got all 4 of the predictions right. I called Bob and Kevin, mostly Kevin, just because out of karma, because he should have been in our last playoffs league or our last league in the playoffs, and I beat him out for it, and I did not deserve it. And then I said the scrubs, and I actually called win dance repeat and his home run pitchers making it, and somehow that mattered. So somehow that happened. So those 4 made it, which was great. And then let's go to the playoff stats. So actually, without even going too much into it, win dance repeat played Get Rex Scrubs for the not Cleveland division. And actually, I'll just go back to the standings. I'll show it. Win Dance Repeat swept the Scrubs to get into the World Series, which was completely unexpected. They showed up and the Scrubs just did not. It was a couple great games. On the Cleveland side, another huge surprise. Lucy Deuces sweeps Cleveland Tribe to get into the World Series. So that was a World Series I did not predict. I think I had Kevin versus the Scrubs, and I had the Scrubs winning it all. And so it was Lucy Deuces versus Win Dance Repeat. And drum roll, whatever you want to say. In 5 games, went to 5 games. We did a best of 5. Win Dance Repeat won in extra innings in the 5th game to win the World Series. So I could go into these games more because I was keeping score for all of them. I was watching them. It was a freaking blast. But I have to look at this one, which was game 2. So Pete Harnish versus Kevin Tapani, and again, I could go into so many things here, just how, Kevin was winning this game early. Win Dance Repeat came back, but what you're probably seeing here, and it's a kind of a mess on this sheet, that the game went to 16 innings. Kevin, the Deuces, played all of his guys pretty early on. De Los Santos and Masoka did not do well, went to Dave Weathers, blew the game, and then he threw in Todd Van Poppel, hoping for a quick game. It was not quick, and he had to keep Todd Van Poppel out. And I would think it's safe to say that Todd Van Poppel pitched one of the greatest single showdown performances that I've ever seen or heard of ever. That this card is, I think it's a IP2 control 4 out through 16.
I want to say 15, but I'm not 100% sure.
It might be 15. It's just a very standard card. The only special thing about it is that he's an IP2, right? He pitched 8 innings. He pitched 8 innings where he only gave up 1 earned run. That was the earned run to basically have the game go into extras. And then he locked the heck down. Yep. And it didn't make any sense because this was against Tom Gordon. Tom Gordon also went 6 innings, did pretty well, but gave up the losing run. It just doesn't make any sense. Like,
that's what a showdown's for.
Right. And this is great. Like, I was watching the game and I talked to Win Dance Repeat after and said, dude, eventually Kevin was going to bleed out because you had Tom Gordon against Tom Van Poppel going the distance. Like, Tom Gordon's going to win because that Tom Gordon card is great. That just did Todd Van Poppel, man. It's just, again, a legendary performance.
It's just so funny because I was asleep. I think I had to work early the next day, and I opened the Discord in the morning and I just see it and I'm reading it. And I'm just like, this is incredible. And it gave me flashbacks to my 2018 league where the exact same thing happened with Pedro Strop, who's better than Van Poppel. So it makes Van Poppel so much better because he's just a worse pitcher to do it. And I'm just like, those type of moments in the playoffs just make it incredible.
Oh yeah. When it was happening, and I remember we called it after that game for the night, like it was already really late.
Which I'm so glad you did, by the way.
Right. And that was one where it's like looking back, like, why didn't we record this game? But like, it would have been so long. Like we were losing our damn minds. And I'm trying to, it's so hard to see because again, we had to combine so many innings here, but it was Mike Bordick singled and then Paul LaDuca hit the winning run in with the single. So
of course, Mike Bordick singled.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at this game. He had 4 singles. Anyway, but yeah, Win Dance Repeat won. I'll show you game 5 really quick. The big thing here that I think is the most fun is that, or it didn't go into extras. It was bottom 9, but Tom Gordon as the batter hits the game winning single to win the World Series. And looking at the stats, I'll go check it really quickly. I'll actually just show you the World Series stats. Tom Gordon did win. He won the World Series MVP award. So you'll have to see if there's a picture somewhere. If you have, maybe I'll try to put it in the video post after the fact. We'll add it in post. But Sene actually had a Tom Gordon card extra. Did a little mini card frame, sent it along to the winning team, Greg here. But he went 12 innings. I mean, his ERA was crazy low. He was giving up walks and hits more, but he wasn't giving up runs. So overall, that was just a total blast. So, so anyway, yeah, it's just like that. I feel like this. I'm glad we kept stats, and two, like I was watching every game, like I just kind of helped keep
Mhm.
stats, and it's like reaffirmed why like this like game is so beautiful to just be a
Yeah.
part of, because it's just these moments, and usually these moments are in person, which I can't wait to get back to. But man, even having them in the digital age over a tabletop simulation platform is still just the best. It's something we'll
I
all
had to
remember.
work the day of the World Series. I got home and they were in the middle of game 4. And I literally got home, opened my laptop, opened TTS, and put it on. And
Right.
that's what I watched.
And we were watching that's what we were watching. It's great, man. Um, so last thing we got to do here before we wrap this up. We did awards voting. So the way that we did awards voting was that if basically went out and did Silver Slugger, so everybody nominated their single best player at that given position for the whole league. Did undervalued, and for these following categories, everybody put their top 5 in. We gave them points based on who was number 1 got 5 points, number 2 got 4 points, and so on. Did undervalued, overvalued. Rolay's relief man of the year, because of course, probably going to get this taken down because of that. And then did Cy Young and MVP. So let's go into that. And actually, I'm just going to bring it up right on top of here because I want to show Silver Slugger first. So we're going to start with the bench. So the bench spot. And the first one there is Bill Spires. So this one's just kind of like, again, circumstantially, he played the most innings, had the most at bats, just had the best general stats. And it's not a surprise because, I mean, an on base, he's basically Jeff Fry in a
Yeah.
way. He's benched Jeff Fry. And, I don't have the stats in front of me. I could probably bring him up, but he did well. And he was a great utility player he was on Wind Dance Repeat. So second one, and let's see if this works. We did a pitcher Silver Slugger, which of course, and it was Mike Hampton, which makes so much sense because Mike Hampton was notoriously a great hitter as a pitcher in his actual career. So this card was actually, or this was, I think this was actually Bob's Rocky, or was this mine? There were 2 Mike Hamptons. I think I might have had this one.
Yeah,
So
I think Bob had the Mets one.
right. So he did well for me as a pitching hitter. That's really bad. I'm not even super proud of that, but good for him. So all right, let me click out of that. Catcher, Jason Kendall, not a super huge surprise here. I mean, this card is ultra reliable. Also just loved the Pirates yellow here, just shouting that out. But, he was I think he was the one starter for the Lieber Maniac / Ducks on the Pond. And yeah, just pretty good stats. I mean, there were just really no other catchers. Most of the other catchers who were arm heavy, defense heavy. And he just by default was pretty much just doing better than all of them. So, all right, for first base, your boy, Big Mac. He won almost all the votes, and I'll show all the kind of the votes of who people put in after the fact. But yeah, he did super well. I mean, yeah, he had crazy good stats, even though he kind of still underperformed in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
Second base, Jeff Fry. We've
I
talked
knew
about
that
it.
was coming.
Right. Just he actually McGuire and Jeff Fry, and then the next one I'll show you, got almost every single vote. Like there were very few that received almost the unanimous votes, and they did. And again, we're talking about 190 point. I mean, it's just amazing. We've got to make a team with this guy these guys and just have them always. So, no surprise here. Shortstop Mike Bordick, just the anomaly card. I mean, everybody can see him now. Does he follow his stats? Absolutely not. He doesn't. But man, like what a blast of a card. I mean, it is a great card. I mean, single at 9, out through 5 is pretty bad, but it just didn't show up. It didn't show up, right? Third base, Fernando Tatis. I think this one was a little bit, there were a little bit more shared. I think it was between this and Jeff Sorello, who was on my team, but Tatis led off. He got on base a lot. No surprise there. It's a great card. I love the 18 to 20 home run. And again, below 400, very solid card. So, Big Daddy here, got the votes. So, left field, right field, no surprise here. Ellis Burks was maybe one of the best player in the entire league. So he got voted into that. You can probably guess who our next one is, Cliff Floyd. So Cliff Floyd, Ellisberg's on the sides, on the corners was just great. Like those two cards were super fun. And I love this Flip Floyd card. Single plus at 13 as a speed A is so valuable.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, and then center field, Ken Griffey, again, crazy stats. You've seen him. So overall, just a crazy fun, Silver Slugger team that, again, like we said, we should have around. We're going to look at these cards kind of differently, maybe not Ken Griffey or, McGuire, but definitely Bordick, definitely Fry. So, all right, so let's go, I believe let me go over the votes. I'll show you guys this. So, Kendall received most of the votes for Slugger, McGuire, Fry. I mean, it's actually, I kind of lied. Like there was really only one field that was, it was pretty much pitcher and third base that kind of were, I think that Tatis ended up getting 3 instead of 2 for Cirillo. And actually Scott Rowland got 2 votes as well. So pretty much everybody was unanimous. Like there really wasn't, I mean, Griffey
there was no unanimous, was there?
There was no there was no single unanimous. Or no, Jeff Fry got all of them. Jeff Fry and Mike Bordick. Like
Jeff Fry,
listen to this. Jeff Fry and Mike Bordick are unanimous Silver Sluggers. Like
so I can see Bordick because in our league, they're like the National League shortstop pool is not very good.
That's true.
In the second base one in our league, we had Jeff Kent and Edgardo Alfonso and Luis Castillo. And he was better than all of them.
Right. Jose Vidro, who should do super well, but didn't.
They should all do better than Bordick, and he did better than all of them. Than Fry.
Right. It just did not matter. So, all right, well, let's go to overvalued first. So the most overvalued card voted by
who it is.
Was Jeff D'Amico.
Oh.
Who'd you think it was?
I thought it was going to be Bonds.
So I'll show the votes. It's interesting. Jeff he had a crazy high ERA. His whip was awful. It's the control 3 thing, right? Like the control 3 out through 17s, like they should do well, like kind of, but like, man, it's risky. It's really risky. And like, I don't hate these players. It's just spending 530 on one. Because when things go bad, they go bad quickly. And you kind of can't stop the bleeding. And I think that's what happened to him multiple times here. So, again, he was his number 1. He didn't get through 7 most times. It just didn't matter, So I'll show you the overvalued voting. So Bonds was, my boy Bobby Abreu was number 2, Helton 3, Bonds 4, and then Swindell and Weathers as the relief staff, just blowing things, which made no sense. So yeah, I think that pretty much made sense. Abreu's stats were awful. Helton's stats were just okay, but were not representative of a 560 point player who's, I think we would all consider one of the best players in the entire 2001 set. Yeah. So
I was deciding between him and Bonds for my first pick. So.
Right. So you were fucked either way. Yeah. Anyway. All right. So let's go to undervalued, which I don't think any of this is a surprise. I feel like I've already revealed it. It was Mike Bordick. I think he won it somewhat by a landslide. Kind of. Jeff Fry right there.
Yeah, him and Fry.
Jimmy Anderson, and then it was a drop off, and then that's where Kotze, Womack, Pools, but all did well. Again, looking at these cards a little differently. So, all right, and let's go to relief. Not really a surprise here. It's a great reliever. Probably the best reliever is Rob Ned. He was just crazy, did crazy well the entire year. There were really no surprises in the relief category. Pretty much the top. It was Ned won substantial. He got so many number 1 votes. You can see, there's only, you could only get 40 points and he got 35 of them, but I love another card that we talked about, both Marlins, another card that I didn't know anything about before this league. And I love now is Dan Maselli. Just an awesome card. And so he showed up, Gabe White showed up. So anyway, let's go to Cy Young, which kind of already talked about him, not a ton. It's probably not who you're thinking it is, because I wish it was, but Chan-Ho Park won Cy Young. This is, I think, the number 3 best pitcher in the NL in terms of starting pitching, maybe 4. If I show
going by points, I think he's 4 because D'Amico's more points than him.
Oh, was that? Oh, it looks like it's still recording. I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So, he super good. he won it, but not by much. Jimmy Anderson right behind him. And that's where I have to give the honorable mention to Jimmy Anderson. I
Oh my
mean,
God, what
this
a
card,
card.
control one out through 17, almost won Cy Young. I mean, in a league where we had Maddox and Kevin, I mean, every good pitcher in the NL that was out there was taken and was pitching, and it
Yeah.
just didn't matter. Um, so anyway, last but not least, MVP. We've talked about him. He had a resurgent second half of the season where he just became superhuman. It was Ellsbergs. So he went from his ground ball double plays to just hitting bombs left and right. And he won it pretty, I mean, it was between pretty much him and Ken Griffey. But then interesting how Cliff Floyd was right there and then a steep drop off, but at least Mike Bordick was number 4 in Cy Young. So I think we thought for a bit that Mike Bordick was Cy Young, and it was actually him and McGuire duking it out.
Yeah,
so
for a while, and then Burks took it over.
Right. So anyway, this is the first time we've announced that. We haven't even told our league yet, so they're going to see it through this. But just the overall, this league was a just total blast. A lot of it was kind of our first exposure to using Showdown or playing Showdown over TTS. And just kind of seeing the mostly operations of how it would work, also feeling out rules, which, we're going to talk more. I'll talk more about when I talk about our next league and what we changed and things like that. But, overall is a blast. And I mean, I just, getting overly romantic about it. I think being able to still play Showdown and talk about it this way. And, even Matt, you and I get together, or just even, I mean, these guys, like most of these guys I haven't seen. I've friends of mine I haven't seen in a long time. Right. Or two, like friends I've
I was gonna say I haven't seen you in forever.
It's been months when I think you dropped off like some cards to my house, So and that's the thing. And then there's a lot of guys in this league I've actually never met in person. And who knows if I will in the future. And but yet they're like, great friends of mine. So I'd say this league from that aspect, my team was 6-14. I'm gonna throw that out and just say I just had fun, So
you tanked for the first pick.
Right.
The 12th pick in the next draft.
Yeah, I did end up getting I wanted the number 12 pick in our next league, and we did it in a completely random way, live with multiple people watching, and I still got it. So I literally could not determine my own pick by myself, and yet I still got it, and I'm rigging it. So I think I rigged this league and I didn't win. So anyway, but well, all right, everyone. Yeah, like we said, we'll put our we'll put our Twitters in the our Twitter handles in the description. Of course, hit us up, let us know what you think, leave a comment, hit a like. And like we said in the beginning, if you're still listening,
join the Discord.
If you're not in our Discord, please hit us up. If you haven't used, if you don't know what Discord is, take a look. It's like a chat platform. I went a year ago from not knowing what Discord was to now paying for Discord. So that's how much I've really started embracing it. So, come join us, come chat about this stuff. So, anyway, any last remarks?
I'm ready for the next league. It should be a good time.
We're going to get there, man. All right. Well, we're signing off, everyone. We'll see you.